This is WAEC June 2023 General Mathematics Paper 2, and we are answering question number 10, and the question reads: in a town, Chief X residence is 60 meters away on bearing 057 degrees from the palace P, while another residence for Chief Y is on bearing 150 degrees from the same palace P. The residence of Chief X and that of Y are 180 meters apart. The question asked here, number A, we are asked to illustrate the information in a diagram. And the question number B asked is to find the correct three significant figures. The Roman 1 bearing of residence of Chief X from the residence of Chief Y. And the Roman 2, you are asked to find the distance from the palace P and the residence of Chief Y. So let's attempt to answer these questions together. So let's attempt to change these statements into diagram. We have residence of X and residence of Chief Y, and their bearings are given both from the same palace P. So let me just mark the palace P. That will now be my reference point. It is from there I'll take the bearing of Chief X residence, and it is from there I'll take the bearing of Chief Y residence. So starting with the Chief X residence, which is 60 meters on the bearing 057. 057, remember we always start from the north line and we move in clockwise direction. So starting with the north line, this will now be angle 57. Then the direction of this resident X from the palace P will now be along this line. Look at it. It's now going to be 60 meters away on this direction. So I'll now move to residence of Chief Y, which is on bearing 150 from the same palace P. So I'll take this angle 150, starting from the north line and moving in clockwise direction. So you now have angle 150. So somewhere here would now be the direction from the palace of residence Y. Let me just draw the line. Look at it. It will now be along this direction from the palace. The two residents X and Y are 180 meters apart. So I'll now join a line and mark it as 180 meters, the distance from X to Y. So this is the drawing, and we have completed it, and therefore question number A has been answered. Then we move to question number B. Question number B, starting with the Roman 1, asks to find the bearing of X from Y. This is the residence X. I want to know its direction, but from the residence of Chief Y. So what I'm going to do is to now come here and draw the 4 cardinal points. Look at it. So the bearing would now be the angle starting from the north line and moving in clockwise direction up to this line, joining residence Y and residence X. Look at the angle. It is this angle, look at it. That will give me the bearing. So to find this angle, it is required to know the angle inside this very triangle, and it is also required to know this very angle. Of course, from here down here will be 270. If I can find this, find the angle inside this triangle, I think I'll be done. I can now get the bearing. So let's just move and see how we can determine those two angles. So this angle, I call it theta. It will now be an angle inside my triangle. Of course, I can get it using sine rule. But this very angle, let me see how I can get it. If I come here, from this to this is 150. So if I start from this line, also stop in this line pointing east direction, it will be 90. So the remainder of this angle will be 60. Look at it. This remaining angle will be 60. It's simply 60 plus 90 to get this 150. And if this is 60, this angle is also going to be 60 because the two will be alternate angles. If that is now done, what remains is now to find this angle theta, which of course I can now use the sine rule to find it. This angle inside the triangle, look at it. If this is 57 and this is 150, subtracting 57 from 150 will give you this angle inside the triangle, and that is now going to be 93. So I can now apply my sine rule. So sine theta divided by the side opposite to it will now be equals to sine 93 degrees divided by the 180, which is the side opposite to. Let me just write it. So you have sine 93, this very angle, divided by the side opposite to it, which is 180. Look at it. Will now be equals to sine theta, which I wanted to find the angle theta, divided by the side opposite to it, 60. So let me just cross multiply and make sine theta subject. That will give me sine theta equals to 60 multiplied by sine 93 degrees divided by 180. So I will now find what is sine 93 degrees using my calculator of a figure table. If that is now done correctly and divided by 180, you now have 0.3287. This is sine theta. So you now find the sine inverse of this value that will give you the exact size of the angle theta. If that is done correctly, you now have 19.44 degrees. This will now be the size of this angle theta. So I have the angle theta. I can now find the bearing of residence X from residence Y. And I said this to now be from here down here, which I said is from here to this is 270 plus this angle 60 plus this angle theta, which I have as 19.44 degrees. Let me just write it. So I have 270 plus 60 plus 19.44 degrees. And adding these three values correctly give a result 349 degrees when rounded to three significant figures. This will now be the bearing of the residence X from the residence Y. So I move to the last question, the distance between P and Y, from the palace to the residence of Chief Y. So it is this distance that I'm going to find now, which I can equally use the sine rule. But before then, I need to know this angle because it's the angle opposite to this side that I wanted to find. It is distance. So I have this 93 and I have this angle theta 19.44. I can use sum of angle in a triangle to find the third angle. You have this angle beta as 180 minus 93 minus 19.44. And if that is done correctly, it will give you 67.56 degrees. This will now be the size of this very angle. I would like to have this angle because I wanted to find the side opposite to it using sine rule. So I continue. So I can now write the sine rule, which says side of this very angle 67.56 divided by the side opposite to it, which I'm looking for, the distance py, will now be equals to sine 93, this 93 divided by the side opposite to it, which is 180. So cross multiplying and making py subject, distance py would now have 180 multiplied by sine 67.56 degrees, everything divided by sine 93. If you now find the sine 67.56, find the sine 93, multiply this by 180 and divide the result by sine 93 degrees. If that is done correctly, you now have 166.598. And when this is now rounded to three significant figures, you now have 167 meters. This will now be the distance from the palace to the residence of Chief Y. And this answered all of the questions. Let me just share with you how marks were distributed in this very question as it is contained in the official WAEC marking scheme. So the very first mark is the bonus to 2 marks for changing all the statements into drawing. This you have this bonus 2 marks, but this drawing, all the points must be correctly written, all the angles for the bearing must also be correctly written, and all the distances 60 meters or 80 meters must be correctly written. For you to get this bonus 2 marks, for any wrong one is minus half a mark. The next mark is method 1 mark for applying the sine rule to find this very angle theta that in attempted to find the bearing. So you have this method 1 mark. And simplifying that sine rule, you now have another method 1 mark. And when you have the angle theta as 19.44 degrees, you have this accuracy 1 mark. The next mark is another method 1 mark for adding these angles in attempt to find the bearing of x from y. For adding these three angles, you have this method 1 mark. And when you now add it correctly and you have answer 349 rounded to 3 significant figures, you have this accuracy 1 mark. The next mark is bonus 1 mark for getting this angle 67.56 degrees. In attempt to find the distance here, that is this third angle, you have this bonus 1 mark. Next mark is method 1 mark for applying the sine rule in attempt to find the distance from P to Y. That gives you method 1 mark. And when you now simplify that sine rule, you have another method 1 mark. And when your answer P is 166.598, you have this accuracy 1 mark. And when you now rounded this answer to 3 significant figures to get 167 correctly, you have this accuracy 1 mark. So in total, this very question has 12 good marks.